Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's been a few weeks since I published a video, so I thought I'd better get moving on this one. I've been working on this video for about a week, 10 days or so. The painting of the subframe that I stripped in a couple of videos ago and pulled out of the 6 and stripped down to the bare metal in preparation for painting and rebuilding. So you saw, last time you saw it, it looked like this. And now in this video we're going to take it to this. This has all been rust encapsulated and chassis black paint. Also the air tanks as well. I got that colour matched at the local auto paint store. Took a sample from the inside of the tank. I did have some suggestions about going to a powder coat, which I certainly couldn't. Powder coating would have been that much more durable, but I'm trying to save certain amount of funds for, you know, inescapable parts that I have to buy, you know, such as other airbags for the rear and engine mounts and other unforeseen things, door seals, obviously paint, and all the supplies that, you know, you need to bring the car back to going back on the road. So as you can imagine, also there's a lot of parts that are coming off and getting set in boxes and things like that. So I went and bought a little storage shelf from the hardware store to try and box everything up into sections of work, essentially, you know, brake master cylinder, brake systems, airbags, air valves, all that, and keep it all consistent so I don't lose anything, and taking lots of pictures. You can never take enough, you know. I've got to order some more parts for the suspension subframe. I bought some seals and what have you, and the leaf spring rebuild kit from MB Classics in Germany. The rest of the parts I'm just going to buy stateside, you know, kingpins, upper and lower, the eccentric bolt at the top of the kingpin and the lower one, the rebuild kit, so I'm going to buy those here. Also the subframe mounts, I'll buy those here. The engine mounts I will buy from Germany because I've got a better price on them over there. And then once all that is all together, I'll bolt all that together and then start using the old airlines, the bend in the airlines, to make my own airlines, because I'm going to replace all those because they're kind of skanky looking and rusty. So I'm going to use I think it's a nickel copper combination, and I'll have to get myself a flaring tool. So there's lots to do. Yeah, that's about it. So let's get down to workshop and I'll show you how I went about it. Okay, so we come down to the lower shop where it's nice and cozy. It's about 5 o'clock in the evening, so I'm done for the day. I thought I'd do a little bit more stripping. I've been working on all the control arms. Also, I posted in the group I've been stripping the air tanks down as well, getting all the paint off those, and using these little roll-lock discs just to polish them up a bit, ready for painting. I'm going to use a 2-pack, 2K epoxy primer, couple of light to medium coats on that, let that flash off, and then for these I bought, I actually took one of these in so they could sample the colour on the inside at the paint store, and one of the members asked if I can give them the code. Now I called them about that. Normally it's printed on the can when they mix your paint, but they said to me, well, unless it's actually nascent paint, then the codes are not going to be the same, or the quantities or the pigmentation is not going to be the same. But they called it English red. Anyway, but any good paint store should be able to scan this in a colour and get this nice kind of dark orangey red colour. So they're all ready. Just got to degrease them and prime those. Control arms have all come up nice. Checked them for any cracks, so everything looks fine. I've been stripping those during the week, you know, when I've got a bit of spare time. The lower control arms, they come up nice. I removed the little mushroom bungs here, you know, that sit in here. Only one of them was really badly split, so I only need to replace one, because the other 3 are in perfectly good shape, and there's no reason to replace them if they're fine. I mean, they seem like they've almost been replaced not too long ago, because they're such pliable rubber, and they just seem to be fine. When the new one comes in, I'll see anyway, because I mean they want $30 each for those, so I mean that's $120 for 4 mushroom things, you know, that I think are fine. So anyway, I can save money, so why not? As far as the paint, because it's got a lot of red pigment in it, the reds and the yellows, all those heavily pigmented colours, pretty expensive. So for a quart of that, it was $95 for a quart, and then of course you've got to get the hardener and the reducer, so it's like 150, 160 bucks for that. But obviously I'm going to need it for the rear ones, and that's kind of it really, because I don't think anything else is that colour. But anyway, saving money in other places. I did get some new, I guess you call them lower inner control arm pins, you know, or almost like a king pin laterally there. I got 2 new ones of those because the other one was so badly worn, and I didn't want to just replace one. The upper ones, I haven't bought new ones of those yet because I want to get new ones of these nuts. And I'll tell you for why. I'm thinking that most of the wear or the play is within this nut, which I think is softer material, or more wearing material. You know, this takes a lot of the wear. And the reason I think that is because on these new ones I bought, I used those new nuts that came with it and put them on the old ones, and there was no play, you know. So all of the play seemed to be in these bushing nuts. So anyway, I'm going to buy once it's 4 new ones for the upper control arm, see how I get on, because the thread on those pins at the top seem to be really good, and they're not cracked or anything. So again, save some money. All this stuff and the main yoke is going to get the platinum rust encapsulator, two light coats of that. Don't want to do 2 heavy coats, you know, just 2 light to medium coats of that. Leave that to flash off, and you have to recoat, I think, in 72 hours. And if you go past 72 hours, you have to mechanically bond, meaning you need a Scotch-Brite pad to key the surface again for the top chassis paint. But I don't want to do that. I want to do it all in one go. So get it all encapsulated, then we'll hit it with the chassis black. So I got the old airbag off this tower, but am I missing something? Because it seems like this sucker is glued on there. I don't know, where someone might give me an idea whether it needs just wrapping from the other side. Anyway, if you can give me some tips on how to get these out, that would be awesome. I just cut it off, but they look like they could be a bit of a bear to fit as well. Also this, I'll show you the clean one. This is this ring here, one of the airbags, the lock-in ring. I think I'm going to take these into a shop down in the town here, about 20 miles away, and there's a few of these pieces, and get them re-coated. And it's got this kind of yellowy coating. I'm not sure what it's called again. Someone mentioned it in the group, some kind of like yellow zinc or something. Get these recoated, and anything else I need, do it as a job lot, you know. For these kind of projects, let's think, especially for the rust encapsulator, because that stuff is like that miracle paint. If you leave any little bit on the lid of the can or anything, and you put that lid back on, that lid's not coming off again. So that in mind, when I go to spray the rust encapsulator on these control arms and then the under yoke, I'm using a cheap ass spray gun. I'm not using, because I have some nice spray guns. I've got DeVilbiss, my GTI Pro's a $350, $400 gun, and I'm not putting that stuff through that. And it's just the rust encapsulator anyway. You can actually brush that stuff on. So I've just bought, I know a lot of you guys don't like Harbor Freight. They sell a lot of junky tools, I know, but they sell cheap spray guns. I mean, really cheap. And I'd much rather wreck one of them, and I'll clean it and everything, you know, use it for other stuff that I don't care about, but I'd much rather chuck a spray gun out that's like literally $15, and it's not like you're doing body work. This is just control arms, and I'll get a nice finish on it. And then the chassis paint, I'll use my proper nice guns. I have a kind of a mid-range gun I'll use, you know, and my really nice gun I'll use on the bodywork when it finally comes down to painting the car. These I will use my mid-range gun because that's just epoxy primer and then the paint. So, but like I say, the rust encapsulator, I'm not putting that through my good gun and risk messing that up. Right, so this is the new one I've got, and now this is one of the old ones here. First of all, let's start with that one. You can see, let me get on that on camera, there we go. Okay, you can see this is one of the old bushing nuts as well. I don't know whether you can just see that, but that's got a bit of ply in there. Okay, I'll probably sit about there for the correct distance for the seal there. But that's definitely got a little play, right? But these teeth on here look good, so that's why I'm thinking looks to be mostly inside these bushing nuts. So here's a new bushing nut that came with the other one, and immediately as I put it on you can just feel it's just a beautiful fit. Okay, I mean there is a minuscule amount of play there. I can't really, because let me just show you again on it. So what happens, you see, the seal goes on like so. That goes on approximately there, you know, give or take a little bit, crunch that seal in. You don't want to over compress that seal because otherwise it will just fail. Gives you a good visual what to check when you go underneath checking these seals anyway. So right there I can't really detect any play, so that tells me all the wear's in these things, which is kind of handy because these are only about you know, I forgot now, about either $15 or $19. I mean, they're proud of them for just a nut, but it's better than replacing these things, I'll tell you. Now this is a OEM, I can't remember the manufacturer of this, but I talked to the guys, it's OEM, OEM quality as far as the make and everything. As far as, you know, the build, I don't think it's Mercedes itself, because they wanted like something like $500 for that, and I didn't pay anywhere near as much as that, but they're identical. You know, I don't see any difference really. There's a little nub in there, which isn't on this one, but this actually looks a little thicker there. It's substantially thicker, this one. This one's a little thicker, so see? There you go. But I wasn't going to pay $1,000 for these two things, I can tell you that. That's ridiculous. I'd have probably, if it was come to that, I'd have probably just bought new bushing things and be done with it. And Zerk fittings are here, so you can see the principle of it. Pumps it in, pumps it along into a chamber, because this has got a hole in the end, you see, hole in the end, pumps it in, and when I assemble this I'll grease everything, make sure it's all nice and easy, put that together. So that's that. For those of you not familiar, these are, well, obviously this is a spray gun, and this is a decent quality DeVille Bis finish line, not top of the line but a decent gun, and these are adapters that screw onto the top to enable you to use these what's called PPS system by 3M. And essentially, let me get that locked on there. You fill your material up. This plastic cup has markings on it for your measurements. This top lid has a screen, a filter screen in it, and then this gun just locks on to this, and you do your business, spray away. And this container, you can put the cap on, but this stuff has a very short shelf life once you've mixed it, so I'm not going to mix very much. And what's the beauty of this system is that this cup, you keep this cup, but these liners you throw away. And then enables you to quickly change from one material to another. So that's the story of that. If you've got a regular cup, that's fine as well. You obviously just got to clean it out each time when you're changing materials. So that is that. I've put a, those of you not familiar, this is the fluid nozzle. This is a 1.8 fluid nozzle because I'm anticipating this to be a little thicker even once it's catalyzed, 1-to-1 ratio. So the fluid can come out there without any restrictions. If you had a 1.3 or even smaller than that, it might have trouble pumping it through. This is an HVLP air cap, high volume, low pressure, so we don't get too much overspray. And I've got a good delivery of air. Actually, the compressor is not in this shop, it's 200 feet away, and I've got an air line running underground 200 feet from the air compressor, so I can operate air tools down here silently without listening to the darn compressor anymore. So that goes in there. There are other primers called self-etch primers, and I don't know a lot about them. From my understanding, they have a higher acid content in them, and in some cases they can be problematic, but probably some of you out there know a little more than that about that than I do. But this is just your standard direct to metal epoxy primer and should be no problem. Got a lot of rust inhibitors ability in it apparently, so not that these tanks are big time prone to rust, but they are under the car, so keep scraping the bottle there, the bottom, to make sure all the agents and everything, all the pigments are thoroughly mixed. I've been stirring for about 4 or 5 minutes now. I'm going to mix up, put about 6 ounces of this stuff in, 6 ounces of that, and I think that should be plenty for these, because I'm not gonna de-dump it a lot on them. That's it. Clean that can off. Didn't have to hold that. One to one. Thoroughly mix. Right. Make sure this lid's engaged properly. Gun goes on. Ready for business. Okay. Plus with this system you can spray upside down, which is kind of fun and handy. So let's get my mask on. Now we're nice and warm in here. We're about, let's see, 64 degrees, plenty warm enough. It's towards the end of the day. And because this is what's called a HVLP gun, puts out, you need a high volume, low pressure. So it's basically a lower pressure but a high volume of air. And so you don't need as much pressure to atomize at the tip. So consequently, you're not got a lot of overspray everywhere. You're able to turn it right down, and so you can see there wasn't a great deal of mist everywhere. That's why I like these guns. You know, you've got to be careful. You could get orange peel with these if you don't set the gun up properly. So anyway, so we've got plenty to do. I'll let that flash off for I think 30 minutes. I'll read the can and then hit it with another coat, and then they're job done for the priming. Right, we're back in the shop next day. The wife asked me today if I wanted to go Christmas shopping down in the malls, and so I had a choice to go Christmas shopping or paint suspension parts. So you can see what won out. Anyway, silly question really, but all right, okay, so we got all the parts cleaned up. I wanted to just show you, someone was asking about sandblasting and stuff on one of the comments on the group or the YouTube channel, I'm not sure, but all I did is, you know, I used that removal tool and then I refined it with a little die grinder with this little pad attachment. But you can get these roll-off discs, you know, these little tiny discs, you know, coarse, medium and fine, like Scotch Brite, and they do a beautiful job just refining everything, getting into all little details and corners, and then you know, then you're all set, ready for paint. But this is I probably went a little further than I need to, really, because I was kind of getting into it, you know. But so that is that. These roll-on, I just suggest getting them on Amazon or something. They're a lot cheaper than buying them from the local parts store. I think they wanted $2 each at the parts store, and you can get, I think this was about 50 of these for $30. So there's no comparison. So one of these is awesome for getting in all details. So that's that. And then I degreased it with some wax and grease remover from my paint store. This is for body work, for prepping for cars. Eastwood again sells that prep stuff, but then that pre stuff, but they're not going to send that through the mail to California. So that stuff's fine. And I've got today the platinum rust encapsulator, which the first coat, now what I was thinking, first coat I'm going to put on with a brush, and the reason being is that, well, give you an idea with furniture finishing, when you get like little corners and stuff, sometimes the spray gun has a little trouble getting into all those little crevices and corners, especially if you have the pressure up too high. It tends to kind of rebound out. So I might be over fussy, but I think it'd be nice to get a good base coat on with the brush into all the corners. And also I'm curious to see how this stuff flows out from the brush, you know. And if it flows out really nicely, I might just go complete brush with the rust encapsulator, because this is, like I say, very hard on spray equipment. You've got to really make sure it's clean. And this is just a brush. If I screw this up, not a big deal. If I do end up spraying it, I'm going to use that cheap crappy gun that I've got for $15. So let's get started on this. It's got this locking ring on the top for some reason. Reminds me of that stuff in the UK called hammerite. You brush it on, it has a kind of a hammered finish when you're done. Kind of looks like that, smells like it as well. But we're quite nice and warm in here. I've got a fire. We're probably running at around 60 degrees, 62 degrees right now. Also, when you're done with these cans, you've got to thoroughly make sure you clean the rim, apparently, because that welds the damn stuff onto the and you'll never get the can open. As I say, I've degreased all these. Decent quality brush, not crap, you know, pretty good quality brush. But if I trash it, it's not a big deal, you know. As I say, what the brush does enables you to get in and really stipple in all those little tiny crooks and crevices that you might miss with the spray gun, or it might just blow over them, you know. There's a series of welds around here, you know, bead welds, probably an inch and a quarter long, and I'm just really working some treatment right into the corners of those. And I'm not too fussed to get complete coverage. If there's a few thin spots, that's okay, because I'll, like I say, come back with the gun. But it's mainly the corners I'm concentrating on. My old boss back in England has apprenticed as a French polisher, hand finishing, you know. The old saying was, take care of the corners, the middles will take care of themselves. Because a lot of people tend to concentrate on the middle of things, you know, this kind of area, but you want to make sure you get all your corners, and that's crucial for French polishing, because it really looks ugly if the corners are not a little dry, you know. So that's the reason I'm doing this. See, this empty chamber is ideal for the brush, you know, because the gun you spray in there tend to reverb back out again, you know. So what I've been careful to do is not get paint in the threads of the control arms. I've actually put the bushings back in, you know, so I don't get this paint on the threads, because this stuff hardens like you wouldn't believe. I don't want any problems with that. This is the only area where the thing got a little surface rust under here. Very mild, because you can imagine all the water getting caught up there and mud and everything. So brush is fairly easy. It's similar to just an oil-based paint, you know, if you've ever used oil paint. Got a slight drag to it, but I'm assuming it will flow out pretty well. Interested to see how this hides any scratches, how much it fills up, because I would imagine 2 coats of this, it would fill up any other score marks, you know, from the stripping process. But then again, I did use the Rolock discs that helps refine the finish. Should be pretty smooth. Again, these are the areas, you know, where the swing arm bolt goes. Whoops, this side, where the swing arm bolt goes here and pivots, and that's where it gets greased, and it all grease gets all compacted in here, and then moisture gets in it, and then so these mounting nuts here, I'm going to really make sure they're coated nicely, and you know, over a period of maintenance, when I grease them, I'm going to make sure that area is clear of a lot of build-up, because that could be a moisture trap. This is the next day. Actually, I took all night to dry. I mean, it takes a while because this is some kind of epoxy coating, you know, this rust encapsulator stuff. So I brought it outside. I've sprayed the top here, and I'm going to flip it over and rest it on these towers, and then I can touch those in later. It's not a big deal. Just that it's kind of an awkward thing to strap up. I don't have my frames that I did, the control arms weren't wide enough, so no biggie. So I'll show you that in just a second. These came out real nice. I think I was glad to do the hand coating first to get all the corners, and the spray gun, it struggled a little bit, but you do have to thin it with xylene about 20%, and it's that cheap crappy Harbor Freight gun. Literally on sale, you can get these for about 10 bucks 10 or even 7, I think. So if you screw it up, who cares, you know. But certainly I wouldn't use a real expensive gun doing this, and this does a fine job to do this kind of thing. You can't get xylene anymore apparently, so I got the xylene replacement. It seems to thin it very well. Give it a good stir, because it struggled a little bit, and give it a good stir up and rack the pressure up a little bit, break it through, and then it's praying fine. So you can see it's come up pretty nice. That's 2 coats, medium coats, not real wet coats, just medium coats, and that will flow out. I'll leave this out here today, got nice sunshine. Right, okay, in my eagerness to get rolling on this, I sprayed 3 of them in there. Now they had the 2 coats of the rust encapsulator. Now that was about 24 hours ago, so within a certain time frame you can just spray them without key sanding them, because they still have a chemical bond, and after a certain amount of time you have to key sand with Scotch-Brite to get the mechanical bond. But I wanted to do it within that time. I sprayed these 3 with a very light first coat. I've got one up here on the old rack here ready to spray the first coat on this guy, so let's get that done. And as far as the paint itself, let me get that camera on there. As far as the paint itself, the chassis blade, it doesn't need any thinning. It's very thin, I would say, on the thinner side, so it goes through the spray gun very nicely. I've got a 1.3 fluid tip on this gun. This is the DeVilbiss FLG. You don't need a really fancy gun, but you know, when you get into more finished work, it's nicer too. And certainly on the body work, I'm going to use my really nice gun. So let's get this one sprayed up. Bearing in mind, you know, I've got this spray set up here. You don't have to use a regular, you know, proper spray gun. All this stuff comes in aerosols as well, and I think they're good quality aerosols, not junky ones. So yeah, so you don't have to have a big spray setup, obviously do it outside, but this has come up real nice. So it's 2 coats now, medium coats, you know, thin, light to medium coats, I'd say. Don't go too heavy, and just 2 coats. So it's had 2 coats of encapsulator and 2 coats of this chassis black. Now onto the air tanks. I've had a couple of days to dry now. I think the window's around 72 hours for a chemical bond, and I'm kind of borderline on that. I think I'm just below it, but I'm going to just give them a little scuffing just to knock the sheen off, just in case. Just got a fine Scotch-Brite one here, just to scuff the surface, make sure we're going to get a good mechanical bond with the top coat. I mixed up the paint. It's the ratio, I can't remember the ratio now, it's 4, 1 and half. So 4 parts paint, 1 part of reducer and a half of the hardener. So that varies, I think, from different paint manufacturers. So anyway, you know how to measure that out, I'm sure. So I'm going to go ahead and put the first light coat on these and see how they come up. Let that flash off for a few minutes. The way I was getting underneath there, because it's a little tricky to get right underneath that lip there, because you've got a lot going on, so I'm going to be very sparing here. But they got a nice smooth look to them. Let me give you a little pan shot. So they're coming out nice. I think the sheen dies down a little bit, you know, once they dry off. They can look really nice up against that black of the subframe. So there you go. So I'll let those flash off for a bit and give them another coat. This video ran a little longer than I was expecting, but there's a lot to cut. I think that's all for the moment. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed what you saw, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.